Hello and welcome to the Late Bloomer Author Podcast. I'm Wendy and we've got a fabulous guest here for you today. It's quite strange actually because it's a little bit of a full circle going on because this guest actually coached me during my property investing days, and now here we both are, authors, helping other people with conversations and with, getting over themselves and being able to do what they want to do. Now, my guest, who spent 34 years in the police, and I'm presuming he's had a lot of very difficult conversations over the years, and he was then, or he still is, a very successful property investor, and he helps people with the property investor. He does coaching with that as well. And strangely enough, he wrote his first book when he was 60. He's now got, I think he's had 4 books at varying stages, but we'll definitely find out about that as we go in. So what I'd like you to do is to say hello to my guest. It is Rob McPhun.
Hi.
Hello, Rob.
Hi. Good to see you again, Wendy. Hope you're well.
Thank you for coming on. It's going to be interesting because, as I say, we've got a few years history, and we're in a very different place than we were when we met, when you were my coach. And I do remember fondly of it was quite strange because when I would ask you a question, you would then ask me a question back that I'm thinking, oh, why has he asked me that question? And make me go deeper and deeper rather than just a simple, this is the way you do it. So it's really nice that we're both doing this and we're both helping people on their journey, because I know you helped me on mine. So when you were my coach, had you written a book then?
I started my property journey in 2013, 2014, and I wrote the book in 2019, my first book. And my first book was about having difficult conversations in the workplace. Just had a very busy weekend, and now looking forward to 1 or 2 coaching calls this week before I fly off to South Africa. But,
oh wow, how wonderful.
Looking forward
So
to it.
I was saying in the introduction that it's really wonderful that someone who helped to shape my journey, if you like, in the property world, is now a guest on my podcast. So it's really nice to be back in touch and doing something a little bit different than we did back then. So yeah, when you were my coach, did you actually have a book out then? I think because it's your first book you wrote when you were 60.
So my first book was Perfecting Conversations, which was about handling very challenging conversations in the workplace, based around my conversation management model. And then as I was going around the country talking about property, people were like, oh, have you got a book? And I was like, I have, but it's not about property. So I just thought, okay, we'll talk about this. I just thought, okay, let's write a book about property. What would I include? How would I formulate the book, and how would it work? And so I wrote the book about perfecting property conversations.
Okay.
Yeah. And then since then, I've got 2 more books in different stages really, and I'll come on to that as well. So yeah.
Okay. So I think you mentioned before about the whole model of you go to school, you go to university, you go to work 9 till 5 till you die, and if you're lucky you get some retirement. And that isn't the sort of model that you wanted to follow. That isn't what you were looking to do.
No, I think, like probably a lot of your listeners, I must confess, I came to everything a lot later in life than upon reflection it would have been, So I had that career in the police. It was, from the age of 16 up to, 34. I was over 34 years in the police. I then did what a lot of other people do, is I left the comfort of one job for the comfort of another job for a couple of years. And then I launched out on my own. And I think my real self-development journey didn't start until I really surrounded myself with like-minded people, and that happened to be the property journey and happened to be the networking and masterminding through property. But I think what I gained from that was a lot more than just investing in property. It was that support, that network around me. So that, for example, when I said I'm going to write a book, nobody goes, "Oh yeah, right, yeah."
Mm,
Well, you'll remember the phrase Jack and Ori. Jack and
yeah,
Ori tell me a story.
yeah,
And whereas in the past I would have said I'm going to write a book, and people would have been negative about it,
yeah,
etc. So
yeah,
my my light on, or what, I've had many light on moments in this probably the last 12 years, but one of the light on moments was reading the book by Robert Kiyosaki,
yep,
which was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it wasn't so much the aspect of, one of the key messages I personally, because we all take different messages from even the same book, but one of the key messages I took from Rich Dad Poor Dad was less about being an entrepreneur and more about that journey of, yeah, I did exactly what we were as bloomers, were sort of conditioned, and I use that word
yeah,
quite deliberately, conditioned
yeah.
to do, which was
So
definitely
did you have
useful.
to, yeah, did you have to sort of, I don't know, give yourself a good talking to? What did you have to tell yourself to have that different mindset?
I think it was a combination of what I've just alluded to, really, was I was in that surrounded by people who were looking to get out of their comfort zone. They
Yeah,
were like-minded people. They were at totally different stages in their journey
mm,
in terms of property, and different stages in their journey in life. But I suppose I read the book and I just had that light on moment. And I think
yeah,
sometimes you don't need a lot of persuasion. It's just somebody needs to point out the
yes,
obvious. And once you see the obvious, you take that almost step back and go, "Oh my gosh, that was me. That's
mm,
what happened to my. What am I going to do?" And then you've got to ask that question. This obviously, and I'm a coach. That the next question is, so what am I going to do about it? I've had the enlightenment. I understand the past. I understand why I did what I did. I understand,
mm-hmm,
but the next question then is, well, am I going to continue doing it, or am I going to change? And for some people, and it's not a judgment call, they'll be, I'm not going to change. I'm going to carry on. And so I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day, only the weekend, and he's continued. He went straight from the police and he's gone to border control, and he's in his 60s, and he's now working for border control. And it's not for me to judge, but in effect, they've just gone from one job to another job. What it's taught me, though, is getting out of my comfort zone. Is that's where the real growth as a person, intellectually, emotionally, financially,
yeah,
it all occurs outside the comfort zone. And the danger is in this conversation, or a conversation like this, is we get into cliches, about, oh, you're getting in your own way. And I don't want to talk in cliches, even
yeah.
though some of those cliches are absolutely spot on. There's an element of truth in them
I know,
that
yes. One of the things that you do say quite often is about getting in your own way.
100%, 100%.
Mm,
The first thing that I will talk to somebody about in their business, or whatever, is the first thing that will come up is all their excuses. I'm too busy. I haven't got the time. I'd love to do that, but, and there's a but or a however. So, and they go into what we would call the victim mindset, or they go into the, if only I had money, or when I get money, or when this happens, I'll do that, or if that. And so it's like, without, and we don't want to go down the property route too much on this call. I know we don't, but it's like, I haven't got enough money to invest in property. You and I both know that that is actually just an excuse. I
mm,
haven't got enough time to go to the gym, or I haven't got enough time. I'd love to do that. Well, actually, one of the aspects of your life, if you're going to get out of your comfort zone, is doing new stuff, is giving up old stuff.
yes. Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
you've got to decide, okay, I'm going to give up watching telly, or just scrolling. And again, I know we know that, but it's that dopamine hit. And
Yes.
I love reading books, and I've always read lots of books. I keep books on the go all the time, and I revisit lots of books like Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits by James Clear is a great book for people to read if they want to get started, for example, in writing a book. So I can talk about, how I structured writing my first book, because I needed a structure. I needed a to-do list on a daily basis. But you realise, in order to create good habits, I've got to give up some bad habits.
Yeah. It's prioritising, isn't it?
We've all got the same, again, cliche, we've all got the same time. There's
Yeah.
24 hours in a day. But whenever I give talks about, what are you going to do this year? What memories? And I like talking about memories as well, rather than goals. What memories do you want to create this year? And writing a book and being successful and having the kudos stroke sense of achievement that goes with writing a book is a memory. It is a sense of achievement, and that's far more valuable than the money you'll make from a book, probably.
Yeah.
Unless you get to market.
Yeah. I had this discussion last week with my guest that if you want to get rich, then you're not going to get rich from a book. But what it does do is it can open other doors and different sort of revenues and turn into. I mean, I would never have dreamt in 1,000 years I'd be doing a podcast and a YouTube channel. After writing my first book, so you just don't know where it's going to lead you.
No, I think I talk about. I was chatting to somebody yesterday, and I went, "Oh, so what we need to do now is get a book out. We need to get you writing a book." And I could hear the stunned silence on the end of the phone. This person's in their early 50s, and wow, what do you mean? Well, what we've just discussed can all go in a fantastic book. And I said, oh no, we can structure it like this. And once you start giving some little tips about how they might structure it, how it might look, content, suddenly it becomes doable. And
Yes.
instead of flipping it, that's not for me, that's not what I do. And what I said to them was, the word author suggests authority. You automatically, rightly or wrongly, position yourself
Yes.
if you're an author, as an authority in that area. I'm not talking about novels, obviously. I'm talking about, for me, business books and things like that. Although I have got a novel. Yeah, I have got a
Oh,
book.
have you? in your head, waiting to go.
Yeah, I've got a title for it, I've got a plot for it, and I've got everything. But that's another story. So, and as I said to them, at the end of the day, if we're realistic, the book is a fantastic business card.
Oh,
If
yes.
you think about a business card, the book is the best one you can have. I have been in a room, and this is not to be narcissistic or ego driven. I've been in a room, and this is genuinely where networking's going on, and you're picking up snippets of other people's conversation, and they're hearing snippets of yours. And I've just sort of stood there and said, oh, well, I've got a couple of books out. And somebody's gone, oh, you're an author? And the room's almost gone like,
Yes.
What is it? I can't remember the pub where he walks in the Werewolf of London. But basically, it just goes silent. And it's like, whoa, yeah. And people... So it does raise your level in the eyes of other people.
Yeah.
But a very sobering thought, as I said to this person yesterday, you get hooked up on the content. You think, I'm not an expert, so I can't write a book. Well, actually, you are quite, you have got a lot of knowledge to share. You certainly know a lot more than the majority of people out there about your chosen niche and subject. And secondly, and again, some of the people on this podcast might not like to hear what I'm going to say, but actually the majority of people who buy your book rather, don't read it. We like to think they will, but the truth is, I've got books on my shelf that I've not read, books in Audible that I've not got round to listen to, and books on Kindle that I've not really read yet. So you've got to get out your own way as well in terms of the content's got to be spot on. Well, not everybody's going to read it, and secondly, don't think everybody's going to read it, that you're going to be this world-renowned person. At the end of the day, you've written a book. It's great. It gives you fantastic confidence that you've got this book. So when you're talking to people, and certainly if people spoke about my first book, they said, "How long did it take you to write?" Physically, I know how long it took to write, and I'll cover that in a second. But I just turned around and said it took me 34 years because there was 34 years of
content,
ideas, cobbling it to putting it together, and then sharing it in a way that would be easy to read, understandable, and people would want to read it. So it's 34 years of experience in the job, in the police, and being a manager and a trainer and a leader, all wrapped up in that one book. But physically, and your listeners might be interested in this, it actually took me 31 days to write.
Okay.
And I know it took me 31 days to write because actually it's interesting enough, it was this time of the year, just prior to this, I said, right, I'm going to write off August to write my book. That's the sacrifices. That's what I'm going to stop doing in order to achieve. So I set a little I had an Excel spreadsheet, very, very simply. If I write 1,000 words, I'm going to put a green traffic light. If I start writing and don't do 1,000 words, it's going to be amber.
Okay.
And if I don't write anything, it's going to be red.
Okay.
So I've got a visual representation of how I'm getting on throughout the month. I know the book I want it to be, and I'd set my stall out for it to be about 30,000 words, 31 days in August. So it's as long as I wrote 1,000 words a day, by the end of it, I'd have a cracking draft of 30,000 words. The realistic experience was I'd start writing and I'd just get in a flow, and some days write 2,000 or 3,000 words.
Yes. Easily
other
done.
Days 500, other days none. So overall, it worked out about 30,000 words. Because they say when you're running, if you don't feel like running that day, put your kit on, walk outside and think, well, I'll go for a walk. Almost guarantee you that after 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes of walking with your running kit on, you'll break into a jog. It's just psychological. So if you start writing and have that discipline to start writing, you will write probably more than you think you feel that you're in the mood for. So that was my personal experience of writing the first book. The second book was absolutely easy. I'm not going to lie, I don't want to sound blasé, but it was very easy to write. The second book was very easy to write. It took me about 7 days. I know you're going to go, wow.
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 Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about the draft. I'm talking about a really good draft that you've got to edit. But I just thought, and it was a trick again. I learned from a webinar about book writing, and it basically. So my model, my conversation management model, which you know about, is PER, PER, Perfecting Conversations. That's my trade name. So PER is plan, prepare, and practice before a conversation. Engage, explore, and evolve during the conversation. Resolve, and then reflect and refine after the conversation. There's 9 chapters.
Yes.
So it was like, I need an introduction about why people should read this book. I need an introduction to the overview of the model. There's 2 chapters. I then need to write 10 tips for plan, 10 tips for prepare, 10 tips for each. There's 90 tips. Conclusion, thank you very much. So that's
a good framework to have. That's a good outline, a good framework to work from.
And so what I did was then I wrote plan, 10 tips on planning. I didn't write the paragraphs per se, I wrote the 10 tips, bullet points.
Yes.
And then I filled in the bullet points. Just a couple of paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs each. And then at the back of the book, which I don't know whether you've bought it or not, but at the back of the book is like an appendices of these are good questions you'll ask an investor. These are good questions you will ask a letting agent. Good questions you would ask an estate agent. Good questions you would ask a vendor. Here's another appendices of some of the websites you will visit in order to do due diligence. And the next appendices was here's a few ideas on how to do a checklist for viewing a property.
Yes.
So they're workable tools at the back of the book. And the reality is now, and that's why my other two books are in process, ChatGPT, Claude.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, at the end of the day, the tools are out there.
Yes.
If you said, well, I think you know better than I do because of your partner and things, that the quality of the answers revolve around, as it does in life actually, the quality of the answers you get revolve around the quality of the questions that you ask.
Yes.
So you ask great prompts from ChatGPT and Claude and things, it will come up with a great starting point for 10 for you then to add your anecdotes, your case studies, your stories that make it yours. So I've found that the last two books were, again, fairly straightforward to kick off, but the editing of them is taking a bit longer than I'd anticipated, bringing it all together. So yeah, so but again, one of them is about one book's about doing due diligence on people. Don't send the money yet, because as you know, again in property, people, we're taught and we teach people to use other people's money, which is one of those limiting beliefs that the book overcomes. But that people unfortunately don't do due diligence on the people they borrow the money from, or more importantly, when they're lending money.
Yes.
Due diligence. And then the other book, the latest book, is a leadership model that I came up with 20 odd years ago. That again, and this is, I can talk, as I've already demonstrated on this podcast, but hopefully there's some useful stuff in it. Is that it's surprising how you come up with stuff throughout your life, in the work you're in the job that you're in, and you don't realise that you've come up with something that other people value and other people would benefit from. So, you know, this leadership model I've used I didn't design, if you like, but I developed it within the police 20 odd years ago. I mean, I retired from the police 18 years ago. And this was a model I devised around about 2000, so 26 years ago. Yeah. I've never given it any thought. It's just, you know.
Just sitting there.
I'll tell you why I've written the book. And this is what I think, this is what happens in life if you keep your eyes and your ears and if you're open to new opportunities.
Yes.
Is I was giving a talk to some business leaders in Hull. I showed my leadership model, and 2 people came at the end and said, that is a game changer. Can we use your work? We'll credit you with it, but that's a game changer. And at that point you think, is it that good? Is it that
Is it that different? Yeah.
Is it that different? I'll tell you what, I'm going to write a book about it and see. Because I might as well share it. And there's no point in keeping things to yourself. The purpose behind a book is to share stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the main thing with the late bloomer training that I do, because I've got a school community, and it's all about, you know, your experiences, what you've done in life. For example, if maybe you've overcome some sort of pain and you've figured out how to help yourself to deal with something, then you want to be helping others as well. You know, any experience that will help someone else maybe not go through what you've gone through, and that's what it's all about. Sharing is helping someone else to make their life better, and you know, so that they don't have to go through the same things as you do. It's just, if you've got something and it's useful, then share it. And then the other thing from that is, maybe you're not looking at sort of a non-fiction type thing like that, but you're doing something as a legacy. So it's not leaving all your money to your kids, but it's leaving something that they can maybe read when they're older, or, you know, to know a little bit more about you. So it's something that you're leaving behind that is something of yourself. And I think that's something that many people don't think about when they're doing a book is that it's not about being on Amazon or being a bestseller. It's writing the book for yourself first, and what you want to leave behind for other people and what you want them to remember you for. And I think that's quite important as well. And, you know, as you were saying, when you were saying about your leadership book, that you were thinking, is it that different? You know, why would they want that? And I think that was my limiting belief when I first started writing. As my first book was management leadership skills. And I'm thinking, but loads of people have been managers, loads of people have been leaders. Why am I any different? Who's going to want to read my book? Who's going to want to read my story? And you have to get over yourself and just say, well, do you know what? I'm going to put it out there. And I did. And then I moved on from there and then moved on from there. And, you know, 3, 4, 5 books later. And it's just changed my life completely. I'm in a totally different direction than I was before. And I think the main thing, as you said before, is get out your own way and just start, you know, just make a start. But I love your idea of how you put together the outline of your book and just went boom, 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 boom.
And getting started is the hardest bit.
It is.
Getting started, you know, I am reaching that age when doing exercise. It shows, you know, but I've got to do it because if I want to be fit when I'm 70, which is not that long, that far away, but want to be fit when I'm 80, I can't start when I'm 79.
No.
You've got to do it now. And so I think we've all got a book in, at least one book in us, if not more. And like you said, even if it's only based on your own life experiences and background, I think it's for some people. One of the first people I met when I first went into business was a lady called Sophie from York, who actually used book writing for therapy. And so she taught people to be cathartic and get emotions and feelings out on paper. And I know this is not linked to a book per se, but sometimes it's easier to write than it is to say things. And I'm going to digress slightly, but you know I do that. When my father-in-law passed away, I told Nicola, my wife, to write him a letter and just say the things that she wanted to say in the letter. And so she wrote that letter, and then we put it in an envelope, and then we visited him at the parlour and left the letter with him. And it's just an awesome cathartic release of getting things out that need to be said. So I think even if you use it, you could argue that even if you never publish your book, you'll probably gain a lot from writing it, you know.
Yes. And I think a lot of the excuses, as you say, not sure if excuse is the right word, is people do think they're too old and it's too late. And do you think age is the actual reason people don't start, or is it another reason?
I think age is one of those. I think people do think it's too late, and because they think it's going to take weeks, months, years, and it doesn't. You know what? If you get a good, like anything else, in many respects, I know the quote is attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but whether it was him or not, that's one of the things you learn when you start doing research. But no quote is ever attributed to the right person. Ever.
No.
And so, if you're going to write a book, you know, if you're going to cut down a tree, spend 6 hours sharpening the saw, then you can cut the tree down. Else you'll spend 7 hours with a blunt instrument trying to chop a tree down. And I think the same is with a book. Start scoping it out. Start thinking about content, start writing and it will start to fall into place. And yeah, it will change along the way. Surround yourself with like-minded people who've done there's a great phrase, don't look up to people. And I think the danger is our generation is we look up to people because we were taught to look up to people.
Yes.
Don't look up to people, look into people, see what they've done, and then do it yourself, but in your style. So, you know, don't look at people who've written books and think, I wish, or I'd like to, or I'd love to. Turn it round, flip it. Well, what's stopping me? And age is definitely not a barrier to writing a book by any stretch of the imagination. like we've said. Number one, it gets it out there, out your brain, out your system, and what you then do with it is up to you. And so
Yes.
you can get the book out, you could publish it, but you could do what I've done with one of my books, which is really the Perfecting Conversations, the first one. I must admit, because I was so embedded in property and so wrapped up in property and property coaching and property mentoring, that's the book that's always been promoted far more than the other one. How much time will it take? How much effort? That's up to you. Get the book out there, get it published. How much do you then use that for marketing terms, for promotion? It's totally up to you. You can spend a lot of time or spend no time. But again, well, probably Saturday, I think it was, chatting to somebody, and I can't decide whether to do this or whether to do that. And I just said, one of the things I've learned at my late stage in life is that no decision is forever. So do that. Do whichever one feels right at this moment in time.
Yes.
Because who knows what will be, where you'll be, how you'll grow in the next 2 or 3 years. Nothing, certainly in the 20s and 30s and 40s, is forever. It's not. I keep coming back to your language, which is, I never expected to be here.
No.
I never expected to be. And I genuinely, as somebody who left the police 18 years ago, never dreamt I would be a successful property investor, that I would have a holiday home in South Africa that I can travel to when I want and enjoy, that I've got books out, that I coach and mentor, meet and circulate with people who I'd never would have dreamt of circulating and meeting. And that's not in a snobby way. I'm not talking about...
I know.
You know me, I'm not a
No.
flash car, flash this. That doesn't interest me whatsoever. I'm not a materialistic person in that respect. As I said to somebody at the weekend, I love what I do. I think I'm very successful in the respect that I do what I want when I want, and more importantly, with who I want. I pick and choose clients and things. Ideal place to be. And I don't think age is a barrier. I think it's the opposite in many respects, because you've got a gravitas to you. You've got life experience. You've got knowledge that when you start to promote your book, it already opens doors. Without being disrespectful, and age is definitely not a barrier in the respect that I know a couple of people who are in their early 20s, and I mean very early 20s, who've written books about burnout and about this. And you go, and I'm going to be slightly negative here, and you look at them and you go, you've written a book about burnout.
What do they know? Yeah.
What do you? And that's the danger. You go, what do you know about burnout? And that's a judgment, and you shouldn't do that. But that means that in their marketing, they know they've got to overcome that negativity as part of their marketing. Somebody who's been around a bit, in the nicest possible way.
Yeah. A late bloomer like ourselves.
Doesn't have that issue to start with. It's not going to get in
to explain themselves. Yeah.
To explain themselves.
It's funny because I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, Fiona, and she was 46. She was doing screenwriting, and then she decided to turn one of her screenwriting scripts, whatever, into her first book. She was 48, and it got picked up by HarperCollins. And 13 books later, she's still doing this Nosy Parker series it is that she's got, the sort of cosy mystery type thing. And I asked her, could she have written the same book the way she does now if she was 20-something? Absolutely not, because all of her ideas, her stories, her characters, they've all got a little bit of her and her history and her life. And I think that's what you need. It's taking, as you said, how long does it take you to write a book? 34 years. Because you've been gathering all that information all this time until you're ready to put it down on paper.
Yeah. So my first book, and I'm particularly proud of my first book, in that it's a business book, but it's written as a narrative. It's a trainer delivering a workshop, and he's delivering it to a number of people. And there are 5 protagonists. There are 5 characters in the book.
Ah, okay.
And so I'm particularly proud of the fact that it's different. Now, whether it works or not, for some people, it probably doesn't. And anybody who's a trainer could pick up that book. I can tell you now, they could pick up that book and run those exercises that that trainer runs for themselves in a workshop.
Right.
But when people have read, those people who have read it have said, well, it's you, isn't it? It's you as a trainer in the police. Absolutely. It just flowed because I could see myself giving this session, highlighting the points I'm making. The people and other people and people have read it and gone, oh, I really resonate with Philippa. Oh yeah, I know a Bob, I know a Jim, I know they know because again I've drawn those characters. Even though it's a leadership book, I've drawn those characters from everybody I've met in the workplace.
That's right, over the years.
Over the years. So, and that's what I hope is that people can resonate with it and go, wow, this is true. This is how it is. This is reality. This is practicality. Rather than just here's a model, apply this model. They can see the model in action. So yeah. So I'm particularly, I know that that's the way I wanted to write the book, and that's what I did. But also that's why it flowed, because I just saw myself delivering the sessions and chatting and hearing the people in the workshop saying what they're saying. Somebody a bit like you, Wendy, probably saying, look, can't we get on with this? What's all this about? Can we move on? We've covered this, let's move on. And that comes out in the book. So yeah.
So you're covering lots of different people and different stuff, because everybody's very different, the way they learn, the way they understand things. And even talking to someone, as you said, with reading a book, someone listens to one part of it and takes away a lesson from it, and someone else actually hears something else, even though they're listening to the same thing.
100%, they're in a different place. You can do it yourself. You listen to a book, like we've said, I've watched The Matrix a dozen times, if not more, because I enjoy it, but then I see a different thing as well. And in the film, and I didn't know that. I've never. Now it makes sense. I watched the film the other night and I went, this film's never made sense to me, but now I've really listened to the beginning, it's all starting to fall into place. The thing, one tip that I was told about writing, for example, a business book, is a lot of people don't read your book. So 80% of people don't read your book. About 15% of people read your book and only read the first 3 chapters. So if you want to get your message across, get it across in the first 3 chapters and then elaborate on it and what have you. And then there'll be those people who read it from start to finish. Yeah, so that I thought was an interesting tip. And if you're going to write a book as a marketing tool, make sure that there are tools in it for them to download my free gift or download this template from my website. Here's a link. Put those sort of links in your book and create that the assets that follow the book as well. But you know that from entrepreneurship now.
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of people, you don't want them to read the book or listen to the book, put it down and then not do anything. What you want is for them to say, oh, that's how they did that. And then there's a resource at the back and they can do the exercise or take the test or something else, whatever it is that you want them to do.
And it doesn't always have to be your tests either. In my first book, I wrote about personality profiling. So there's go to the following links in order to do some disc profiling or what's dynamics or whatever. It doesn't even have to be your stuff. It's just helping them grow in terms of seeing, because that's the other thing as well. I think we underestimate just how much influence different personality types and our personality has on the way we see life. I could get drawn into different personality types, but we look at the world through our own eyes if we're not careful, and we need to look through a different lens sometimes in order to see what's there. So
I think when you were saying about people's limiting beliefs, and that, I think that is a big thing, because I know I suffered with that for such a long time. Because of the life you live, you think everybody thinks the same or does the same or whatever, and it's only when you realise that everybody's different, or that some people do something different, you're like, well, they can do that, I can do that as well. And that is a big thing, I think, for a lot of people, is realising that, when they're looking at somebody, they're not, I'm not saying they're not special, because some of them are special, but they're not exclusive. There's no reason why someone else can't do that as well. If anybody can do anything, then they should have a go. Because if you don't have a go, you've failed already.
You 100%, and what you learn over life, I think, anyway, is that the reality is, putting aside politics and inheritance and people who are there because of nepotism and what have you, the majority of us, if we work hard and we work consistently, and I know that's a bloomer thing, but the rewards can be there. And the bottom line is the rewards will definitely not be there if you don't get started.
No.
If you
Absolutely.
might be able to work hard, give it a go, and not make the rewards that you feel that you deserve, but the reality is you definitely won't get it if you've got to be in it to win it. So definitely, if you don't get started, you won't win anything, and you certainly won't get out your comfort zone. And you don't often realise how much you know until you mix with some people who don't know what you know. They start asking you, they ask a question and you go, oh, and you give the answer.
Suddenly I'm an expert.
Yeah, why didn't you know that?
Yeah.
And I thought when I first came into property, I was brand new in property. After a couple of months I realised, well, no, I renovated my own personal property, not an investment property, but the first property I bought was run down, and with my first wife we renovated it. I didn't realise at the time I was learning skills about dealing with electricians, plumbers, planners, councils. That's what I did. Then I did exactly the same with this house that I'm in now. With Nicola and I dug this floor out, took this ceiling down, and you don't realise you're learning skills while you're doing that. And then you realise other people don't do that. They've never done it. A good example was at the weekend. As you know, we did the 3-day workshop for new investors and then existing investors. And a lad came up to me after about 4 or 5 hours of the first sessions, and he went, "What's equity mean?" And it's like, you don't own your own house, do you? No, I've only ever rented. And it's like, well, why would you know what a mortgage is and the different types of mortgages and what equity is?
Yes, because it's definitely not taught at school.
100%. And the reality is that a significant amount of people live at home with the parents up to the age of 30, have no idea about mortgages and what it means, and interest rates and repayment versus interest versus, and so when you start talking to other people and imparting your wisdom stroke experience, you realise you know a lot more than you think you know. And why not get it out on paper? Because the thing as well is, things I hear people say is, potentially I'm sure you've heard it, is, well, why would people be interested in what I've got to say? And it's nothing new. It's like, well, there is very little new out there. I love it when, I'm going to name him, Tony Robbins. Oh, Tony Robbins has said this. And I go, well, I think we'll find that Socrates said that about 2,000, 3,000 years ago. Tony Robbins didn't invent that phrase, but he's put it in a way that people resonate, and it resonates with modern. And so I think that's what you're doing when you're getting your stuff out, is somebody will resonate with it. It will be done in a way that, watch a plot of a film and you think, well, I know the plot. I can tell you the plot. Heroine's going to this, hero's going to that. There's going to be tragedy in the middle. There's going to be a bit of pathos. There's going to be a bit of comedy. Yeah, there's nothing really new.
No.
It's how you...
It's how it's put across.
That, and it's how you say it. It's in your words, and some people will resonate with it. And
yeah, they will.
We're not all going to write a multi-million selling novel, you know.
It would be nice, but no, we're not.
You don't need to, do you? Like we've just
no,
discussed,
you don't.
it's not about that, you know. It's
No.
almost, it's like people who enter property who they think they want to own 100 houses, 200 houses, and they actually find out that 15 good ones that do well. Right, okay, actually I'm okay.
That's enough.
Yeah.
I think, again, with writing a book, especially as people get older, that, as I said, my limiting belief was who's going to want to read my book? What have I got to say that's any different? The second book I wrote, strange enough, is called The Communication Relationship Code, and it's about communicating with couples. And straight away I say, look, I'm not a therapist, I've got no training, but what I have got is 60 plus VAT years of experience of my own relationships and my children and my friends and everything. And I put it from my point of view, you know, how I feel or how I see it or something like that. And again, one of the things I do, there's lots of resources in the back for couples to download and do together to build that communication thing, because that's where it was lacking. It was quite funny actually, because we were on a holiday, we were on a cruise ship, and I decided I'd got this survey, and I found loads of couples on the cruise ship because I'd got like a captive audience. They couldn't go anywhere. And I went round to couples and said, I've got a little survey here. I'm an author. I'm writing a book on relationships. Would you mind filling out these questions? And it was really interesting. The people that didn't speak to each other, didn't converse. Others had a really good relationship with each other, talking about everything, and others were just poles apart, and you're like, how on earth did they survive? One doesn't want to talk about anything and the other one wants to share. And that was quite eye-opening for me. And I put lots of case studies in the book as well of different couples. And they were all ages, you know, and that was interesting, as you were saying about, you know, the art of conversation. Some couples just don't have conversation at all. And I didn't realise that until I wrote the book.
And I think, exactly, and I think that's another reason for you to write a book, is because what you take for granted is not second nature, is not normal for other people per se. So they need it. And we all look at other people and think that they know exactly what we do. I mean, you know me, you know I like talking. It never entered my head why somebody would feel frightened, lack confidence about walking into an estate agent and start looking at property and discussing property. Never entered my head that anybody would have any difficulty with that. Why? Because I didn't.
No.
It was absolute second nature. And similarly, picking up the phone, but I'm also conscious of the fact that I do hold myself back from doing other things that people find really easy. And a good example of that, I'm going to be quite judgmental here. I'm not going to apologise for it because I think there's a lesson in it. I'll stick with firewalking because most people know about firewalking.
Yeah.
You know, that would not be my fear, because my logical brain would go, right, they must have risk assessed it. They wouldn't get insurance to do it if it was that dangerous. So there must be some physics involved. That means it's not as dangerous as it appears and we perceive it to be. And therefore, if you want me to walk over hot coals, done properly, professionally, I'll do it. Why? So that's not my Everest. That's not my Everest, believe it or not, would be sitting all day in front of a computer with an Excel spreadsheet. I would rather walk over hot coals than do an Excel spreadsheet, because it's not me, it's not what I do, it's not what I enjoy doing. I can do it, but I would struggle to do it, etc. So it's understanding that everybody's Everest, everybody's challenges are actually completely are different to yours.
Yeah.
And what you're sharing with them is helping them overcome their Everest, overcome their challenge, because it's not a challenge to you. So therefore you can help them and support them overcome it.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't. No.
To spoil it for anybody who's done it and thinks what I do understand, is the perception is that it's a challenge. The perception that I'm going to get burnt, the perception that I've got to really suspend my fear in order to walk over those coals. I get that. I get that's where the lesson is. And then people are supposed to join the dots and go, well, if I can overcome that, then I can overcome sitting in front of a computer and doing an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I just can't
absolutely.
sometimes link the dots. I just go, I know that sitting in front of an Excel spreadsheet is not my forte. I couldn't do what your partner does. It anathema to me. Coding, I haven't got that discipline to do that. So that's what you're sharing with people.
It is. I think. I mean, for me, I think my message to other late bloomers is that I've probably hit all the brick walls that they're about to hit. So I understand where they're coming from and stuff like that. And it's funny, one of the stories that I share from my first husband, I mean, I must have been in my 20s, and he once said to me, "You've got more escapades than Simon Templar." And I think he meant it as an insult. And I'm like, oh, right. But now I look back on it, I think actually that's not an insult. Yes, it's because I've always been an entrepreneur before I knew I was an entrepreneur. So yes, I have always got escapades. And I think, like you said, the type of people that you're mixing with now, and you say, oh, I'm writing a book, and they're like, oh, are you really? That's really interesting, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same as me now, but it wasn't always like that. And I think it's other people, and this is another block that I get when I speak to people who want to write a book, is that people will say, what are you doing that for? And they give them the lack of belief in themselves, or I did a YouTube, and I talked about an article in The Guardian, and they were talking about these people, these late bloomers that had done, different things. One of the ladies was Nola, and she went back on stage as a stand-up comedian at 77. And she said, her quote was, don't tell anybody what you're doing, because then they don't get a chance to talk you out of it. And I think that's a lot of the problem, is who you're mixing with. And I think Simon's always said this, hasn't he, is your, who you spend your time with is, really important.
You've got to get rid of you've got to get rid of drains, and you've got to get some radiators. So the drains are the people who drain you of free energy, and the radiators are the people who radiate energy. We both
I like that.
There's people who walk out of a room and that's when the room lights up,
Yes.
and there are other people who walk in a room and the room lights. So we all know those people and the danger. Now, some of those people are your relatives, so let's not go down. But what I'll say is, for example, they're the people I wouldn't tell what I'm doing, even if it was my relatives. Why would I? Because I don't want them to talk me out of it. And so you surround yourself with those types of people. You surround yourself with, there's two ways of looking at that. Don't tell people because they won't talk you out of it. They can't talk you out of it. But also you've got to be careful that you don't talk yourself out of it. There's two forms of communication, and from other people and from yourself, what you tell yourself. Now, I heard, and what I thought was an amazing analogy, and I love analogies and stories and metaphors to get home points. I heard an amazing analogy on Saturday morning when somebody talked about negative thoughts coming into your head. He said, and it's a bit like weeds, isn't it? He says, you cultivate all these plants in your garden and you spend effort and time nurturing these plants. I've never planted a weed in my life, but they still come up. I've never planted one deliberately, but they still come up, and I've still got to get rid of them to keep my plants going. And I just thought, that's the negative thoughts. Those weeds, whether we like it or not, are going to come in and say, why me? It's not for me. What would be just do it, and there's that triangle, the behaviour triangle, with there's your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. People think thoughts change your behaviour, which changes your actions. It's not necessarily in that order. Sometimes if you take action, it will affect positively your thoughts, which will affect positively behaviour.
Yes.
So some things start with thinking, some things start with behaviour, and some things start with those actions, you know. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't want to. I'm thinking I don't want to run. It's raining. It's wet. And, you know, so that affects my attitude and my behaviour, and I don't go running. If I
Mm.
actually get off my backside and get outside, that affects my thinking, which is actually it's not so bad, and there'll be a sense of it, and bang, it changes. So it doesn't
Yes.
always start with thinking. It sometimes starts with just start the action.
Just doing
Yeah,
something.
just
Okay.
do it.
So if you were
Yeah.
speaking directly now to somebody who has got a book inside them, but talk themselves out of it, or let other people talk themselves out of it, maybe they think they're too late. What would you say? How would you address them? And
I would say, what's the worst that could happen?
mm,
If in 5 years' time you haven't written that book, you have had 5 years of thinking about writing that book. It's been a constant nagging 5 years of I could have written a book. Whereas if you start, you'll probably finish. You
mm,
certainly won't finish if you don't start. So start it. And if it ends up being nothing, you've at least done it, you know?
at least you've
And,
tried.
and you know, imagine where your life could be in 5 years if you wrote the book. Imagine where your life will be if you don't. It'll be exactly where you are now.
Mm,
And that, I
exactly.
think, is the
Yeah.
difference. And you know, a good example of that, I suppose, is my ex-colleagues. Some have left, some have gone now. They've passed away. So they're
Mm,
younger than me, and they've passed away. Why? To some extent, because they retired in their head. They retired from the police. Horrible word, retirement.
mm,
I think
yeah.
it's almost like put on the scrap heap. And I don't ever see myself retiring. In terms of people said to me, "Oh, when are you going to give up coaching?" I said, "I can't. It's impossible.
No.
Because I've never stopped coaching anyway. I've never stopped coaching.
Yeah.
If
It's just a
somebody
natural thing for you.
yeah, if somebody chats to me, I start coaching. I start asking questions. I get interested. I mean,
Mm,
and before you know it, I'm reorganising the menu in the bloody restaurant or whatever. It's just, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What's stopping you? How will you feel if you don't get started? What's the worst that could happen?
mm,
You know? And it's not even rejection because if you set realistic expectations, then there is no rejection, is there?
no.
Actually, exactly as you, and I'll use your language, just get the book out of you.
Mm,
That's the starting point. What's the
yeah.
work? You've got the book out. You know,
Yeah.
where we go with it is give it to friends who you know are positive. Somebody we know very well, the training course that you did, when I said I was stupid, I must admit, on reflection, but when I wrote my second book, Perfecting Property Conversations, they said, "Oh, would you like me to write a foreword for you?" That was their response.
Mm,
Not why, what, well, Rob, nobody's
mm,
going to read that, or who's going to read that, or what. It was like, "Oh, would you like me to write a foreword?" I said no, stupidly. But, but on reflection, it never really, it was an Amazon bestseller. Um, so it never stopped in that respect. And I'm selling it all the time anyway at property events and things like that. So
mm.
I don't make any money out of it. It's not a money maker by any stretch.
No, I think with a lot of books, for people like ourselves, I mean, I've given some of mine away as like lead magnets, if you like, and as you mentioned, card. Sometimes it's good for social proof. I mean, I use my books for social proof because it helps me
Mm.
to promote what I'm doing, helping other late bloomers to write. Chris, for example, he uses his books more of a professional level because he's got this huge cybersecurity book that is very technical for business people and technical people. So his is more of a professional book, and it sort of elevates him in that. But even if it's not for that, if it's just for you, for your
Mm.
family, for a feeling of achievement, if you like, wow, I've written a book, I've done this.
A massive sense of achievement, and I always remember when I was a kid, and probably talking in my early teens, if not before. And I always remember my mum talking about my auntie being an authoress, and I was wowed
Right.
by it. I was wowed by
Yes.
it, and maybe that's why in the end I've thought I want to write a book because I do
Yeah.
like the idea of being an author. It's a great conversation starter. it leads on to other things. It's led to work in South Africa, in that I've been able to give them my book, as you say, because obviously they can't afford a book with the people in the townships. So basically, they pass my book between them.
Yes.
So the book that I've given them a dozen books, because they sort of thing, and they pass them between themselves, and then that leads to free coaching for them. Yeah. So I'm giving back, and it's a great. I can afford to, and I love it.
It's nice. Yeah, it is nice to give back.
So, I mean, when you talk about age, I mean, people who are in the 40s and the 50s, I think of them as bairns now. They're not. It's just not.
Yeah.
And I at the end of the day, I'm nearly 69. I just don't feel it.
No.
I do when I'm trying to get out of bed, or sort of.
Yeah.
But then you pace yourself, and But mentally, I think an inspiration was my mother-in-law, who's just passed away, 92. But she never accepted age as a barrier in any way, shape or form.
Yeah. She
wouldn't have a walking stick, because the old people have walking sticks. Like, Jill, you're 92.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I've loved this chat we've had, but you know what? Before I say goodbye, I need to know what this book is you've got in your head. This fiction book. Come on, share.
Oh no,
Spill the
anybody
beans.
nick my plots. It's called Terminal Conviction.
Okay.
Terminal Conviction. And obviously, like we've just alluded to, you write books based on your background and why reinvent the wheel. So it's going to sound, it's a bit like Dexter. You remember the
Okay.
TV?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a dark sort of thing, and it's basically, it would be a police officer who's nearing the end of their career, who's disenfranchised, who's disillusioned with the justice system, watching people get off, this, that, and the other. Finds out he's terminally ill. So that's the terminal.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to leave the world because he's terminally ill, and even if he gets caught, what's going to happen? He's terminally ill.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to convict these people himself.
Wow.
So it's a terminal conviction. So it's almost
okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Who was the guy on the television? Was it the Terminator, or what was it? Oh, I've forgotten his name now. The Equalizer. Yeah, I used to love that. I used to love that programme. So is it sort of a bit like that then? He's going to go and do the deed.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. That sounds fabulous. Well,
I mean,
thank you.
That's the idea behind it. But
no, it sounds great.
Yeah, like all books, it'll revolve around how you make the character relatable and how people, read it and things like that. So anyway, it's been lovely chatting.
Thank you.
The listeners get something from it, and
thank you. And just to reiterate, I will be putting the links in the description on the bottom at the podcast. And also to say that you're more than happy for people to have a discovery call with you, to have a chat, to 100%. Talk about anything that they want to, and to just get in touch with you, possibly by LinkedIn is best.
Yeah, I mean, certainly one of my advantages is my surname, McPhun.
Yes.
Because it's like somebody at the weekend said, "Oh, yeah, what's the name of your book?" I just said, just Google McPhun and Amazon. The two words, it'll come up, because there is no other. So it's one of the advantages of my surname. So again, LinkedIn, or the LinkedIn message, Perfecting Conversations, Rob at Perfecting Conversations.
Perfecting Conversations.
Yeah. The links will be in there, won't they?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, it'll be on the YouTube, in the description. All your links will be in there, and then people can connect with you in there. So all I'd say is thank you very much, Rob. I've really appreciated this chat, and it's nice to catch up with you as well. It's been maybe a couple of years. About a couple of years since I've seen you, and it's just a funny old world, isn't it? How things turn around.
Yeah, 100%.
Who knows what we'll be doing next time we speak?
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. hopefully we are still around, but that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, Wendy.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thanks.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.